Cassandra here. Welcome to the Buy Tennessee Dirt training videos. If you are new to the team, welcome. And if you've been with us for a while, welcome back. So I'm going to go over the purchase and sale agreement today. There hasn't been really any changes to this document in the last month, but there are kind of new ways to write out the contract and put in your special stipulations and everything in regards to your commission and everything else. So let's just go over the purchase and sale agreement. So at the top, you're going to put your client's information. Once you create an opportunity in Command, their information should automatically go to DocuSign once you open it up. Just make sure though that the spelling of the client's name is correct. So I've got Joseph and Peggy here. And then your seller's information, you're going to find that hopefully on the documents that the listing agent has on file. So make sure you put that in there as well. And then of course you're going to put down the address that they are purchasing. And then just make sure everything is in there correctly. You've got zip code, what county it is, and everything. All right, so then down here, deed book and the page. Let me go real quick. I should have pulled this up earlier. Of course, I'm not logged in. Apologize for that. Okay, so if you're on your page here, if you're on, this is the property, let's just say this is the property where our clients are purchasing, you're going to go over under annual taxes and hit the record button, and that is going to pull up this sheet here. This is your all your tax information, the address and property summary and all that stuff. So down here, it'll have the sales history until the most recent, stuff that's been going on. And this right here is your book and page number. So our 233250. This is not the address that we have written up for this one, so just bear with me here. But you're going to put in the deed book and the number and the page it's on. And then right here is the instrument number. This is your parcel number, and you'll find that information under general parcel information, which it'll say right here, parcel ID, tax ID. So you'll go ahead and copy and paste that as well. All right, and then down here, I put NA. This is asking for further description of the property. If you have that information or you can obtain that information from a survey, that's fantastic. Majority of the time, you will not have that information, however, though. Okay, then if the property has garage doors, which should be stated on the property condition disclosure, so just make sure that it matches it, or if you don't know, at least put one in there if they do have a garage. If they do not have a garage, you'll put NA is in here. Okay, and then in this particular case, things that are going to remain with the home, this particular home is coming completely furnished. So we wrote down home to convey all as furnished at the time of showing. If you want to put in there, you can put in there all kitchen appliances to convey, or all kitchen appliances that were present during showing or in the MLS photos, put that there. If there is a shed on the property, make sure you put that in there. So anything in particular that your clients, let's say they say, well, I really like their dining room table because it fits really well in that room, you can put that in there as well. But of course, everything is negotiable. And then, of course, items that shall not remain with the property. In this particular case, we are putting NA because there isn't anything, but any other PSAs I would put in there, all personal items, or if there's trash and debris around the property, that's where you're going to put it. Okay, and then if you have any leased items, this is where you're going to put that. So security systems, water softener, if there's a propane tank that the sellers have on property, that is, they lease the tank and get it refilled and stuff like that. This is where you're going to put that. But in this particular case, we are putting NA, as well as NA down here, stating that the client or that the buyer doesn't wish to assume the current lease. Well, it's not applicable because we don't have one. Then down here, you're going to put your purchase price. In this one, we've got $950,000. Make sure you write it out like you were to write out a check, $950,000. Financial contingency, in this one, we are, it's a cash deal. but this will change based upon, if it's a conventional loan, typically that's 80% of it is going to be a loan. If it's FHA, that's going to be 96.5. So it just makes sure that you are aware of what the pre-approval is and that you keep communication with the lender to find out that information. Okay, so then we checked cash or other and then wrote in cash. All right, B, financial contingency waived. Do not check this. I do not recommend you ever check this. Whether it's a cash deal or a loan deal, something could potentially happen and it not go through. So I don't ever check this. And then of course I put NA because we're not we're not providing that unless it's asked. And then down here, this is for the appraisal. You either can select that it's not contingent on the appraisal or it is. If you are doing a loan, it is going to be based upon the appraisal. No matter what, you're going to have to go through the appraisal process because obviously you're getting a loan. But in this case, since he's paying cash, he's not interested in paying for an appraisal to be done. All right, now we're getting down to the nitty gritty of things. We got closing expenses. So this is going to change depending on what your client's financial abilities are. So for this one, we have buyer to pay. Sorry, down here at title expenses, buyer to pay title expenses as stated in line 142. So in this case, our buyer is totally fine with paying the title expenses it's going to take to do the title search and everything that comes with closing. And then he just requested that the seller is going to pay their seller to pay the seller's closing cost and the buyer to pay the buyer's closing cost. But if let's say you've got a first time home buyer and they just don't have that kind of cash flow to pay for not only their down payment but then also to pay for their closing costs, so you're going to ask for the seller to pay for that. So I'm going to go over to this transaction here that we've got and the verbiage here, and feel free to take a screenshot, write this down however you want to do it, or you can always refer back to the videos. Seller concessions up to but not exceed $16,000 to be used but not limited to closing cost, title expenses, rate buy downs, and home warranty. Now, home warranty, that the client could say, hey, well, I don't mind, I'll pay for that for myself. I don't need to need them to do that. But make sure that you're clear in what it is that this $16,000 is going to, or however much you have, is going to cover. So make sure the closing cost, title expenses, rate buy downs, and then up here you would say seller to pay for title expenses as stated in line 142 because you're asking them to pay for that. All right, and then as far as closing agencies, this is the title company. Of course, we prefer Bell and Alexander Title Services, so just make sure all that information is in there. And then, of course, reaching out before conducting and going through the process of writing a PSA, I always recommend that you speak with the listing agent, have a conversation with them, especially if they don't have all the documents, load it onto MLS, which I don't know why they wouldn't, but it happens all the time and too often, unfortunately. But just make sure that you have a conversation with them and then find out if they have a preferred title company that they would like to use, that their sellers would like to use, if it's more convenient for them or whatever the case may be. So if they decide that they're going to use a different title company, just go ahead and make sure you're putting that information in here. Okay, and then when it comes to earnest money, this is always negotiable. This is always something your clients are just going to have to figure out if they're interested in doing it. Just let them know with earnest money, it is due within 3 days. I know I have 5 here, but it's typically due within 3 days, and that money goes towards closing costs. And if that money is not needed at closing cost or at closing, then they can get that money back. The other nice thing is to kind of give them a little reassurance of it. If let's say you get into your 10-day inspection period and the inspection comes back and it's flat out something is wrong with the home or whatever, there's a defect and your clients have decided not to pursue purchasing the home, they can get, as long as they're in that 10-day inspection period, they can get that money back. And just let them know too that it's kind of like good faith money. I wouldn't say the more money you put down, but the more money you're willing to quote unquote risk putting in an earnest money, the more it seems like the client is more interested into into purchasing the home and actually going through the process of actually purchasing it and making it to the end. So anyway, make sure you put the title company. Bell and Alexander holds earnest money. KW does not hold earnest money. Don't ever accept a check from a client or anything like that. They can either um, pay ACH, which I always recommend because it's just a quick link that they tap with their phone, pay it, and then everyone's good to go and all of it's encrypted so their information doesn't get shared. Or if they feel more comfortable doing a personal check, they can either, if they're local, hand deliver a check to Bell and Alexander or mail a check in. They cannot do a cashier's check because um, it's if they send a cashier's check, I don't know if they can do a cashier's check and drop it off. But I know for sure, like, you can't put a stop hold on a cashier's check if it gets lost in the mail, but a personal check you could. So, but anyways, just try to, if you can, try to encourage, have them do ACH. All right, now we're into the closing date. Depending on your client situation, typically it takes, if you're doing a loan, it's 30 days is minimum. It could be done a little bit sooner, just depends on the lender and having them, how on top of things are they. Of course, if you're using Brian, things are going to move fairly quickly and hopefully with, as little hiccups as possible. In this case, we're doing kind of just over, well, about a month's, about 30 days, only because he's traveling and everything, even though this is a cash deal, but you can close as little as, 7 days or whatever the case may be. So just make sure that your date does not fall on a Monday or a Friday. It hiccups things if something happens and over the, upcoming, towards the end of the week, then you've got that stress of closing on Friday. Um, but then if you close on Monday, there's potential hiccups that could happen over the weekend. So we try to close if possible, either Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Sometimes it happens that we close on a Friday and sometimes it happens on a Monday, but however it works for you and your client. All right, and then we're going to select the closing of evidence by delivery of warranty deed. This is basically at closing, as soon as everyone signs the paperwork and money's been transferred, it is officially your client's home under warranty deed. The other option here is if there is a temporary occupancy agreement, which I have a couple of those going on right now. So this, make sure that if let's say your client decides, hey, or the sellers need, let's say, 2 weeks after closing, they need a little extra room because extra time to get everything out because they've got parties going on and whatever the case may be, birthday parties. So what you'll do is you'll put in there in the temporary occupancy agreement that you're giving the sellers up to, let's say September 29th at 12:01 a.m. to vacate the home. That's what you're going to put in that temporary occupancy agreement. And then of course you would check that. Okay, green belt. This one here is if it is in fact a green belt. There are very few that I've come across, but you're probably going to find a little bit more with land deals and everything. But you would select either or of this one, that either the buyer intends to maintain the property as a green belt or does not want to maintain it. Special assessments are not needed in this particular case. Um, it's just anything that needs to be done prior to closing or needs to be paid. All right, and then deed, make sure that the information is in here. Your client's information is in there, spelled correctly. It's very common for, let's say, Joseph is on, let's say this is a loan situation. Joseph is on the loan and he's the only one that's really signing anything, but his wife is not on the loan, but he wants her to be on the deed. You can put that in as well. So you could have, yeah, like I said, you can have one person that's on a loan and both the people, both husband and wife be on the deed, or if the husband only wants to be on the deed, you would just put his name. Okay, lead-based paint disclosure. In this one, it does not apply because it's a new build. But of course, if it's built prior to 1978, just make sure that you have a lead-based paint disclosure. Hopefully, your listing agent has that information or has that filled out for you. All right, inspection period and resolution. So typically we put in 10 days. You can put 7 days. You can put NA if they decide that they don't want to do any inspections. But typically 10 days is the norm right now, just to give your clients, especially if you're coming into a weekend, um, it gives you that time to look over the property. We put in 3-day resolution. It basically, seller and buyer shall then have a period of 3 days following the receipt of above stated written resolution period. So this is like basically when you get your repair replacement amendment sent to them, they have 3 days to basically like let's figure this out. Let's come to a resolution and get your repairs done. Um, and then of course, if your client wants to waive any of their inspections and everything, you would check these boxes here. But like I said, I highly don't recommend that we waive any inspections. Okay, and then final inspection, typically 3 days. You can do one day. It's totally up to your client, but I just to give us a little wiggle room, I give us 3 days to do a final before we do closing, do a final inspection. All right, and then down here we've got home protection plan. This is the home warranty. This case, we're waiving the protection for anyone to pay for it. I mean, the buyers can pay for it on their own if they want to. You would select this one here and put down the seller, and then um, order by, and then you would say you just type in buyer's agent. Right now, I think the company that we're using, America's Preferred Home Warranty, is $499 for the year. All right, and then back down to here, we got exhibits and addenda. Um, Okay, sorry. Yeah, exhibits and addenda. There isn't anything right now that we've got going on, but in the special stipulations, we're reiterating that we want the seller to pay the seller's closing costs, buyer to pay buyer's closing costs. It is a pass-fail inspection, and then there's some other things that we wanted to add to that. So right here, sorry, my screen's there we go. Seller shall pay 2.5% of the purchase price of the property to buyer broker at closing. So you'll have I know this is kind of new. This is where I wanted to get that new kind of the new stuff out of the way. So if it's 3%, if it's 2.5%, just put that in there. Um, you're going to have your compensation agreement backed up as well. And there's going to be sometimes the listing agent is going to ask for that to be removed in place of your compensation agreement. But if you can, keep it in the PSA so that title knows, oh, that 2.5% is in fact going to get paid out to the buyer broker at closing. And let's say um, you guys have agreed, you and your buyers have agreed a 3% commission. So you'll still put this, seller shall pay 2.5% of the purchase price of the property to buyer broker at closing. And then you'll do another line and it'll say buyer shall pay 0.5% of the purchase price of the property to buyer broker at closing, and so that puts in there so that you know that the buyer is paying the half percentage to get you your full 3%. um, okay, and then anyway, so property to convey furnished, just reiterating what we had put up top. And then if there was anything else, like if you have a home sale contingency, you would put that in here. And that one is purchase contingent based on the successful sale of, and then you would put the address of your clients where they currently live or they're trying to sell. And then you're going to put in down when we want to hear back. So in this case, we've got 6 p.m. Technically, it's going to be the 20th. But anyways, you're going to put the time stamp, the date, and the month and the year. And then down here at the bottom, just make sure that the listing information is all in here. Your information is all in here correctly. And then if it's part of a HOA, you're going to put that information here. And in this case, it's NA. Okay, so I know that was a lot to go over, but as always, if you have any questions, feel free to call Erin or I, and we'll hopefully be able to get everything answered. Have a good one. Cassandra here.